Hi, my name is Kevin Garza, and my project is Detection and Mitigation of DNS Laundering DDoS Attacks.
For literature review, I have analyzed the next solutions, rate limit, black hole solution, traffic filtering, and the Hasehaba solution, and my proposed solution. I have analyzing those all solutions by some aspects like if the attack is being detected by the solution or if the of the solution is blocking the source of the attack, if the solution is allowing the genuine traffic to go through, and if the resources of the server attacked are being protected. The main contribution of my work, apart from detecting and mitigating the DNS laundering DDoS attacks, is to let the legit users go through and reach the targeted domain of the victim. So by this way, I am blocking the attack, meanwhile letting the genuine users go through. That's the main contribution of my work.
On my project, I am proposing a method to detect and mitigate DNS laundering DDoS attacks. The term laundering on the name of the attack comes from the main characteristic of this attack, where the queries that are sent by the attacker appear to be genuine requests from a DNS resolver. The attacker achieves this duty by sending randomized subdomains queries for a victim's domain. On the next slides, I'm going to show you the steps on a DNS laundering DDoS attack. On the first step, the attacker sends randomized subdomain queries to the DNS resolver. The randomized queries are used only once. By this way, the attacker avoids the queries to match any entrance on the cache of the DNS resolver. As we can see on the image, the attacker is going to send queries to example.com with randomized subdomain through the DNS resolver. On the second step, the DNS resolver doesn't have any entrance on the cache for the subdomains present during the attack. And that's because the randomized queries doesn't really exist. Those are just made up queries generated by the attacker. So it's impossible for the DNS resolver to have any entrance before on the cache. On the third step, the DNS resolver sends the randomized queries to the authoritative DNS server of the victim, and that's because since the DNS resolver doesn't have any entrance on the cache for any of those queries, it must send those queries to the authoritative DNS server, and that's how the attack is performed. To summarize, the attacker generates randomized subdomains for the victim's domain to send to the DNS resolver. Since the DNS resolver doesn't have any entrance on the cache, it forwards the queries to the authoritative server. So this is basically the summarize of the attack. On the next slides, I'm going to describe the step by step on the proposed solution for DNS laundering the DDoS attack, where the proposed solution can be described in four phases. The first one is the monitoring the DNS traffic. The second one is the detection of the attack. The third one is blocking the actual attack. And the fourth one is keep the target domain accessible by legit users. The topology I'm using for the proposed solution is this one, where the DNS traffic controller is placed between the DNS resolver and the authoritative DNS server, where the DNS traffic controller has the power to cut the communication between those two DNS servers. The rest of the elements of the topology are the attacker that is generated the randomized subdomain queries ready to be sent to the DNS resolver, and the legit user that is representing a real user which wants to access to the authoritative DNS server as a legit user. Then, on the first step, the attacker is generating the randomized subdomain queries to be sent to the DNS resolver. On the second step, the DNS resolver receives the subdomain randomized queries, and it doesn't have any entrance for those, as we mentioned before. So the DNS resolver sends those queries through the DNS traffic controller to the authoritative DNS server. And through all this process, the legit user has access to the authoritative DNS servers. On step number 3, the authoritative server answers with the NX domain packets to the recursive DNS resolver through the DNS traffic controller. At this point, the legit user still have access to the authoritative DNS server. On the step number 4, the DNS traffic controller stops the DNS communication between authoritative DNS server and the DNS resolver. On this step, the DNS traffic controller analyzed the data that came from authoritative DNS server to the DNS resolver, which was several packets with NX domain answers. Then the DNS traffic controller measured the throughput and decided that the authoritative DNS server was under attack, so then it cut the communications between those two servers. Once the DNS traffic controller has cut the communication between the authoritative DNS server and the DNS resolver, the legit users cannot access to the authoritative DNS server. At this point, the communication is totally blocked from the authoritative DNS server and the DNS resolver because the DNS traffic controller has blocked the communication. So the legit users cannot access to the authoritative DNS server. This is the only point, this is the only stage through all the process when the legit users cannot access to the domain held by the authoritative DNS server. On the step number 5, the DNS controller is keeping the cache of the DNS resolver updated by sending DNS requests. And this is made by allowing the communication between authoritative DNS server and DNS resolver for a short period of time. So the DNS traffic is sending the request, and the DNS resolver is holding those requests on the cache. At this point, the legit user has still no access to the authoritative DNS server, neither by going through or the DNS resolver, because the DNS resolver doesn't have yet the entrance on its cache. On step number 6, the DNS traffic controller is in charge to measure the throughput of the NX domain traffic that is going from the authoritative DNS server to the DNS resolver to verify if it's still necessary to block the communication between those DNS servers. As we can see, at this point, the legit traffic has access to the domain held by the authoritative DNS server through the cache of the DNS resolver. From this point, the legit users will have always access to the domain that is held in the authoritative DNS server by the DNS resolver. On the step number 7, the DNS traffic controller blocks the communication between the authoritative DNS server and the DNS resolver in case the throughput of the NX domain traffic is high. But in this point, the legit users can reach the domain held by the authoritative DNS server through the cache of the DNS resolver. At this point, the queries from the attack cannot reach the authoritative DNS server because the DNS traffic controller blocked the communication between authoritative DNS server and DNS resolver, and legit traffic can access to the domain held by the authoritative DNS server. So at this point, the solution is complete since the attack is not going through, but the legit users are going through. On step number 8, the DNS traffic controller is allowing the communication between the DNS servers, again, to measure the NX domain throughput packets. This is going to be a cycle between blocking the communication and allowing the communication for a couple of seconds to allow the DNS queries to reach the DNS resolver cache. To set up the environment, I have simulated every single machine on a virtual machine environment. I have selected Kali as operating systems since it counts with a series of tools useful for this project. As we saw before, the topology counts with the DNS traffic controller between the DNS resolver and the authoritative DNS server, acting like a man in the middle for the
For results, I have done this table that is showing and comparing the different methods I have studied on this paper against my proposed defense. So we have black hole rate limit and proposed defense, where one of the characteristics is if the method is letting legit users go through. Meanwhile, black hole is no allowing the legit users gone through. Rate limit is allowing, and the proposed solution is allowing. Um, in the black hole, the source of the attack is partially blocked since they are still receiving the attack but not forwarding that. And rate limit is not blocked since they are receiving and forwarding but with a limitation. And my proposed solution, the attack is blocked, so it's positive. um yeah, the same with the compromised resources in a black hole is partially since they are still receiving the attack in a high volume, but they are not forwarding that in rate limit. They are not compromised since they applied a rate limit, so it's not really dangerous for the server, for the DNS server. And my proposed solution, it's also not compromised. And the next characteristic is avoid responding the the malicious queries, where black hole not responsible the malicious queries, rate limit does, and the proposed solution uh, does not respond the malicious queries. So like this is the comparison of the results in the table.
DNS communication.
Well, and to start with the demonstration of the artifact, I'm gonna start setting off the authoritative DNS server.
Well, now I'm gonna start the DNS services for the authoritative DNS server. Since the configuration of the DNS server are already done, I'm just gonna need to start the DNS services. I'm starting the DNS services by applying these commands, and then I just need to check the status for the DNS mask to check if everything goes well. As we can see here, it says no upstream servers configured because this is going to be the authoritative server. It's not going to ask to any other server further for any DNS request.
Well, now I'm gonna place the ARP entrance on the ARP table for the authoritative DNS server. Now I am setting up the DNS services on the DNS resolver. By applying those commands, the DNS mask is enabled, and then now I need to check the status of the DNS mask to check if everything is running properly, and then to set up the ARP entrance on the ARP table to be able to have the DNS traffic controller working. Well, now to set up the traffic forwarding on the DNS traffic controller, I need to apply the next command. This command is allowing the traffic to go through the DNS traffic controller from one DNS server to another DNS server. Now, on the attacker machine, I'm going to run the scripts that automate multiple instances of the attack script. As we can see here in the script, I'm running multiple instances of the attack.py. So then I'm gonna run it, and as we can see, it's running multiple instances of that. And we're gonna check the results on the DNS authoritative server to check how much traffic we're receiving there as a part of the attack. We need to check how the attack is going. Applying bmoon command, it's a tool that checks for the interfaces and the traffic on the interfaces. So I'm running on the attacker side 5 kilobytes attacked, and we can see here we are receiving the 5 kilobytes attack. Now I'm gonna run the script to cut the traffic between the DNS servers since an attack is running. So I'm gonna run the script, and since the attack is running, the script already detected the attack is being forwarded to the authoritative DNS server, so it disabled already the DNS forwarding. As we can see, the attack that was going is now cut off. So the attack is not going on since the solution is blocking the attack. Now, as we can see, the proposed solution allowed the traffic to go through for a bit to check the throughput. And since it found the throughput for for NX domain packets too high, it cut the communication between the DNS servers again. So this is gonna be a cycle of going through the traffic and blocking it and measuring the throughput until the attack finishes. Now we're gonna implement the black hole solution on the authoritative server. So the first thing we need to do is to remove the ARP entrance that we put before, because the DNS traffic controller is not already going, since for black holing solution it is not going. Now we're gonna do the same thing on the recursive DNS server resolver. So we're removing the entrance on the ARP table by applying ARP -z and then the IP. Now I'm gonna apply the command that drops all the packets to enable the black hole solution. So I'm applying this command, and this actually enables the black hole solution. Implementing the bmoon tool, we can see that the traffic that is coming from the attack is not being forwarded to any place. So the authoritative DNS server is just dropping all the data that is coming from the attack. This is the black hole solution. Now I am quitting the black hole solution to implement the rate limit solution. So to quit the black hole solution, I just put a D instead of an A to delete instead of adding the rule. And that's it. The black hole solution is just quit. So I'm gonna implement limit, the rate limit solution. Now I'm applying the rate limit solution on the authoritative DNS server. First of all, I am marking the incoming and outgoing data with number one. And then I am creating a rule that is setting like 1 kilobit. That's the limit, 1 kilobit. And then the third line, it's matching the data that I'm marking with the rule. And that's how we set the rate limit on. Now, after applying the bmoon tool, we can see the data is coming. It's being cut off at some point, applying the rate limit solution. Now, to stop the attack manually, I'm gonna close all the instances that are running by the attack script. Finally, I wanna thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.